I'm kind of introducing myself. I think you've seen me a few times. Welcome to our Top 49ers Executive Q&A. So today I am joined by Sheri Buretta, with Chugach Alaska Corporation. She's the chairman of the board and interim CEO. And I'm also joined by Chris Luchtefeld. He is the CEO of Cape Fox Corporation. Sheri has been Chugach's chairman since 1998 and was recognized in 2016 with the YWCA Alaska Women of Achievement Award. And then in 2018, Chugach's then CEO, Gabe Komkoff, awarded Sheri a Visionary Award for her participation in the work that led to the successful Bering River Coalfield rights sale. She's currently serving as the company's interim CEO. Chris has served as Cape Fox's CEO for just over 4 years, before which he was the Native Corporation's Chief Operating Officer. But he has 22 years of leadership experience in management, operations, and business development, and he uses his previous experience at firms in the federal aerospace and defense industries to build relationships and plan strategic initiatives for Cape Fox. So welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for joining us today. So to start the conversation and in line with the top 49ers, I want to talk about money. 2020 was a good year for both Cape Fox and Chugach. Chugach earned its highest operating profit in history, and Cape Fox saw more than a 60% increase in your gross revenue over the last year. So in short, can you each tell us about how your respective corporation managed to pull those kinds of numbers, and not just under normal circumstances, but in the midst of a pandemic? And we'll start with you, Sheri, if you don't mind.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate this opportunity to address the wonderful businesses of Alaska. And thank you to Alaska Business Monthly for doing this every year and staying so positive in your publication. And shout out to Charles. I think he's been doing this as long as me. And so I really just appreciate you. So your question is an important one because, you know, who would have thought we would be in a pandemic ever? I mean, what a shock. And so we've had to adjust and really focus on our people and keeping them safe and being innovative in our operating companies and just how we provide our services to our customers. And so keeping that in mind, our people are our most important asset, and they have been the backbone of Chugach, and I want to thank each and every one of them. We have several on the line that and you mentioned Gabe Komkoff. He was a strong leader for Chugach for many years, and we want to thank him for that. But you know, Chugach, the board has led a diversification effort that focuses on our lands and how we are able to utilize those lands to benefit our shareholders while keeping a balance with the importance of our environment. And we've done that successfully. You know, the marketplace is difficult, but I think our focus on treating our people right, doing the right thing for the right reason, and our community has allowed our people to give 110%, and they have. And so we really appreciate all of those efforts and know that there are those that are struggling, and our heart goes out to them. And as Alaskans, I'm hopeful that we'll all just work together for the future of the state. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Chris, what's your take on that?
All right. So certainly similar types of things. For starters, thanks to Alaska Business, certainly read the publication every month and enjoy it greatly as well. Also, you know, honored to follow Miss Buretta, certainly one of the great leaders of the entire state of Alaska. And she's had an amazing career in all leadership positions she's been in. I have not had a chance to meet yet, but hopefully we'll get a chance to meet one of these days. But certainly have an amazing reputation across the state. So
there you go, Chris. This is Sheri. Sheri, this is Chris.
Yeah.
How you met?
We'll get you halfway there.
Yeah, we're halfway there. Forgive the interruption. Please go on, Chris. And thanks.
And yeah, appreciate that. And despite being based in Southeast, I'm actually in the Sheraton in Anchorage today, so that's why you have the interesting curtains in the background. But with that, certainly Cape Fox mixed bag, in terms of 2020, definitely some challenges. Overall, I think like everybody experienced, certainly we had, ended up with an amazing year. I think one of the things contribute that to was, for starters, our shareholders really stepped up with all of our local businesses. So one of the issues we had, I think that everybody continues to have even to this day, is labor, being able to staff positions and businesses and all those kinds of things. So multiple times we put out pleas to the shareholder community to say, hey, anybody, descendants, anyone else, please come out and help us out. And they've really, stepped up and done that over the last couple of years, which has just been amazing. The other thing I think that really helped us out was we have a very diverse business. We have a lot of different customers. So, we are a village corp. We aren't, one of the largest corporations throughout the state necessarily, but we do have a lot of different customers across a lot of different types of business areas. One of those is healthcare with the U.S. government. And certainly with COVID hitting, one of the things that helped us out was there were a number of opportunities around staffing doctors and nurses and all those types of things at military treatment facilities and other facilities throughout the country, whether they're federal government or Defense Department contracts. So that was really what led to a significant part of our growth, because certainly the tourism industry in Southeast took a hit in 2020, so we did have to overcome that. But I think that diversity of that business has really helped because, as we get into talking about the future, tourism next year, I'm really looking forward to.
Okay, awesome. Well, that kind of brings up one of the questions that we have in our chat that is specifically for Cape Fox, which is, how are you looking to grow tourism next year? This has been an interesting season with some ups and downs, particularly in Southeast, though the continued delay of the cruise industry is obviously still a challenge. So what are you looking forward to next year in Southeast to kind of build up tourism again?
Yeah, so certainly next year, there have been numbers thrown out at like 1.5 million visitors to Alaska via cruise ship next year, which we're definitely looking forward to that. And we hope certainly that comes through. One of the interesting things for this year that happened is, if you look at the total assets of Cape Fox Corporation, most of our physical assets are in Ketchikan or Saxman area. Our largest asset is the Cape Fox Lodge. Since cruise ships didn't come this year, one of the things that did happen is we had a very big year at the lodge this year because since people couldn't come on cruise ships, I mean, we did have some cruise ships. I shouldn't say there weren't any, but there were, certainly a reduced number of cruise ships. Because of that, a lot of people took advantage of that to come book a room at the lodge. And as our largest asset, that ended up helping us out quite a bit this year because the lodge was packed all year. A lot of charter fishermen and those kinds of things. Now, the other side of that is certainly, when you have about 1 million less tourists than you'd like to have, in terms of the cruise ships, that affects the tourism side of the business significantly as well. So that's what we're really ramping up to next year. One of the things we've done is we have made a bunch of investments into next year. There's a new cruise facility called Ward Cove that just opened this year in the Ketchikan area as well. So we're supporting that operation as well as, planning to grow our tourism operation significantly next year as well. So we're really looking forward to next year. This year didn't turn out as bad as we thought it might be. It certainly wasn't as bad as 2020. And we're really looking forward to 2022.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Well, and so Sheri, one of the other questions that came up in the chat was about finding opportunities outside of the US. And you mentioned that part of what your board is doing is looking at diversification. Does that include a diversification outside of Alaska and the United States? In what ways are you diversifying to find more stability and find growth?
So we've diversified from our government contracting into commercial business, passive investments with other partners in the state businesses that are on this list that I'm so proud of. And for our lands, we've focused on our lands as a opportunity for investing and developing potentially into the future. And that's really exciting to be looking in state. I'm hopeful that more of that will happen as we emerge from this economy that we've been dealing with on top of the pandemic, that we start working together as Alaskans to look at opportunities for investment in Alaska and building up our communities and our people and educating them so that they can lead us into the future. There's so many challenges, but with challenges, there's opportunities. So I see that as our focus in the coming years.
Okay, awesome, fantastic, thank you. So I'm a pretty firm believer, just from my own life, I think I have to believe this, that having missteps is important, and learning from them is what's really important. And I think they're kind of critical in some ways to long-term stable success. So Chris, can you think of a real lesson learned from the last year where there was a project or an initiative or a program that didn't quite work, but that was valuable for your future growth as a learning experience?
Well, COVID definitely created some opportunities for missteps in general. One of the things we did was we did open 2 restaurants within the first 2 months of the shutdown after COVID. So that was maybe not the best timing in the whole world, but
Yeah.
but one of the things you do learn, is you just have to adjust. One of the things we thought about there is, a big commitment by the board of Cape Fox Corporation is to invest in the local community. So really, we're putting all the additional dollars we have into the local community in terms of the profits of the corporation. So with that, whether it's opening restaurants or acquiring new properties and things like that, like we've been doing over the last couple of years, even though the timing wasn't great on those restaurants, we continued to invest in them. We did switch things up quickly and created an app to allow ordering from the restaurants and those types of things. But the main thing we did was the general vision is, we're going to stick with whatever we're doing when it comes to, the local community within Ketchikan and Saxman in Alaska. So we stuck with it, and then this summer, Restaurant Guru named our new barbecue restaurant Bar Harbor, which was one of them that opened during that time frame as the best barbecue in Southeast. So we certainly appreciated that. And the other restaurant, 108, has been doing great as well. It's one of the hubs of nightlife and excellent food in Ketchikan now. So I guess the main thing, you could say it was a mistake or a misstep from the start because certainly we didn't expect COVID to happen when it did. But at the same time, it's an investment in the community, and one of the things we learned is we're going to continue to invest in the community regardless of what happens.
Fantastic. That's awesome. And then Sheri, what's your response to the same question?
So I'm not going to focus as much on missteps as additional challenges that happened during this COVID, and that was with the CARES Act lawsuit that happened within with the ANCs, and it really, this year is the 50th year since the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, and to go through that the pandemic and pull all of our people into remote work, that was a challenge. And then to have this lawsuit filed at the same time took a lot of resources and dedication to ensure that we're protecting our people and our communities, our organizations 50 years after the Settlement Act. And so we successfully fought that and it's a good opportunity to re-educate the younger generation of Alaska Native leaders about the importance of the Settlement Act and what it meant for Alaska Natives and their ties to the land. And as we look at the list of impressive companies that you've displayed today, a lot of them are Alaska Native corporations that have really fought hard to create these dynamic companies that provide benefits to the shareholders and community. So I guess in looking at these challenges, as humans, we step up, right? We stand together and we fight and we persevere and we're resilient, especially in Alaska, on top of everything else. So again, my message, and I sound like a broken record, but I want to just say that I'm hopeful that we aren't as divided as our country seems to be, and that we look out for each other and look to opportunities. And I'm going to throw a thought out there for the University of Alaska. I'm also very involved with that, and I think that that's our future for our people to be able to get an education and work with our companies to be able to provide. I saw a question in there about employees, finding employees. I think that's where we focus our energy, is coordinating, collaborating with the university so that we can get our workforce to a place where they're strong and able to run our companies moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, that's really interesting because I think that, Chris, you mentioned that there's been a labor shortage this year, which is interesting because at the same time, the state really does need more job creation. So how does that kind of work for both of you guys? Chris, if you could maybe respond to that. What is that a really interesting environment to work in where you're both looking for labor that you don't have, but then also needing to create extra opportunities to support the communities that you're in?
Yeah, that is an interesting kind of dichotomy a little bit. Because also certainly I think the tourism business is very seasonal as well, right? So one of the challenges we have is finding year-round work for people, right? So during the summer we can't find enough people, especially this next summer. We're not going to be able to find enough people. We're going to be looking anywhere possible to find people. If anyone knows anyone that wants to come to Chugach for the summer, please have them give me a call. We're going to need a lot of people this next summer, and that's probably our biggest concern is where we're going to find them. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, especially for our shareholders and descendants and the local community and things, the thing we need more of are the year-round jobs. So that's what we've been trying to generate more of through our investments. So part of the reason for some of the portfolio we've been acquiring is to have those year-round jobs. Our restaurants are open year-round. So while a lot of restaurants in the area, because we are very tourism based in the area, a lot of restaurants are only seasonal. We do keep our restaurants open year-round, so they are employed year-round. We certainly, maybe not have the staffing levels a little different over the winter, but that is one of the primary sources that we're able to provide for year-round staffing. And as we continue to purchase additional businesses that we plan to run year-round, that's part of the purpose of it, is to be able to provide those winter jobs for people, so they have that stability year-round, and it's not just what can I make during the summer, and can I survive through the winter on that.
Right, absolutely. And then Sheri, do you have any thoughts on that kind of interesting dichotomy of labor shortages and job production at the same time kind of being simultaneously necessary for our state to address?
Yeah, I think that in this virtual world that we're living in, on this call and how we're conducting our business, we have to be nimble, we have to be flexible, and we need to keep our best and brightest in the state. And so encouraging them to have opportunities at our companies and go to the university and get their education and give back, and to have opportunities. So I really believe that there are specific areas that really need employees right now. Look at the healthcare that's happening. We're bringing people up here, and they're so overtaxed right now. My friend is in the field, and she called me last night. It was just heartbreaking to hear the stories that are happening in the hospitals. And so I want to just say that there are a lot of needs for good employees and workforce. But mental health, people are struggling right now in this mode, and we have to encourage each other and lift each other up and get through this, and we will. But it's tough, going into winter. So I just want to say that there are people out there that want to work, and we have to just motivate them to continue to get up every day and get ready and go in and do their thing and stay positive.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. You mentioned kind of we're in a virtual environment now, and I think that, like you said, this very presentation is an example of how those things have changed. And COVID in many ways has forced virtual communications on people. So we've increased the utilization of phone and internet for just even basic business conversations. Considering that most Alaska Native corporations do have ties with rural areas of the state, has that increase in kind of virtual communication, has that been a silver lining of COVID, or has that been an additional challenge, or is it kind of a mix of the two?
Well, for us, we really stood up a weekly meeting with all of our leaders in the region for our tribes and ANCs and our nonprofits, so that we could share best practices and ensure that our rural communities were protected. And we brought in Dr. Zink and Julie from AFN, and the military was engaged, and it was pretty remarkable to see our community coming together to protect our most vulnerable in these remote communities. And then we set up a site that had a lot of resources on it, and it still is going. Every month we meet just to make sure that we stay in contact. And with that lawsuit that I mentioned, I think that it is forcing us to look at our relationships in a different way. And it was difficult because a lot of the misunderstanding from lower 48 tribes about the lawsuit, there's some healing that needs to take place in that situation. So I'm hopeful that we can educate and move forward and be stronger, and that our communities in these rural communities can be stronger because they have a link and we're working better together.
Awesome. Well, and Chris, the same question for you. Was this push in technology, was that helpful? Was it hurtful? Was it a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I guess it's kind of unfortunate in general. We did live stream our meetings. So we have quarterly shareholder information sessions as well as annual meeting, those types of things, picnic, variety of different types of events, most of which were canceled, or live streamed virtually for the most part. And, overall, we were able to adapt quickly. So I was very happy with the performance, of the corporation in general, because I was very happy with how well and how quickly people were able to adapt and work together and make things happen and make sure, ultimately customers were happy and we were being successful. The unfortunate part, which is the part I enjoy the most about the job, is getting to meet everybody, getting to talk to, employees and shareholders, and getting to have our shareholder information sessions, and getting to do prize drawings and getting to do all that fun stuff. And while you can still do that, somewhat virtually, it's not the same as being standing in front of somebody having a conversation about what they're concerned about and how you can help, and those types of things. And like I said, whether it's an employee or a shareholder or whatever, I miss that. I think a lot of people miss that. So that's the unfortunate, side effect is, sure, we were able to adapt, but, certainly miss having the fun times, together, talking to everybody and, getting to enjoy that interaction. So
Sure.
I guess that's where I stand on it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we have another question for you, Chris, in the chat, and it is, how did you manage your culture through your growth while having to maintain distance during the pandemic? So how was your culture reinforced in this significant period of growth?
Yeah, good point. So I guess one of the things we pride ourselves on is being informative to employees and shareholders and that those kind of things, and building, a culture of trust. And one of the things that, doing that virtually is more difficult. So one of the things we talked about a lot is we can't stop the amount of communication. We almost have to increase it, because one of the things that it's easy to do is, hey, we're virtual. I'll turn my camera off. I'll mute. I'll just kind of sit there and, watch videos on my phone while the meetings are going on or something like that. Right. And what happens is people tend to disconnect because of that. And overall that, that culture of the corporation and the community starts to get lost, because people aren't really paying, as close attention or not participating as much. So one of the things we talked about was really increasing the amount of communications we were doing, increasing the engagement. So we did a lot. We greatly increased the amount of communications we were having, whether that was social media, whether that was virtual events, various things like that. And certainly you have to mix it up as well, because people certainly get tired of certain formats and things like that. So, but I think the main thing was, you just have to almost over communicate in this type of an environment, just to make sure that that trust is still there. People still understand that, they're getting the information they need, and, the culture of the overall organization is, continuing forward, regardless of the, kind of the situation that we're put into.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, and Sheri, I'd love to hear your take on the same question. How, as Chugach has grown and diversified over the years, how are you guys maintaining the culture and your values throughout the organization?
We start each meeting with a safety moment. Many times we have an invocation and just to set the tone for the meeting, and we remind remind our employees of our core behaviors and try to get alignment from the top to the, every position within the corporation about who we are and why we exist. And by doing that, we create a feeling of family, and people our employees have expressed to us that they feel that it's something bigger than them. And so it's different. So Alaska Native corporations have a social and an economic mission from the Settlement Act. And so it's unique, that shareholders can't sell their shares. They, there are just interesting dynamics that we deal within the parameters of the structure, and our connection to the land and our history. And so I think a lot of being involved with Alaska Native corporations is something that our employees, many of them have been with us for over 20 years, and they spend their careers committed to our mission and our values. So I feel very fortunate for all of them. There are so many, and I was just starting to think of some that I could shout out, but I thought I could just go on and on because we have almost 5,000 employees. But I just am so thankful for all of them and the leadership that they have exhibited to our employees, because it's scary. There's a lot of fear out there, and there's a lot of challenges, but I think staying the course and having strong values is key to moving us forward.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, and speaking of kind of enthusiasm, Chris, looking forward into next year, we're coming to the end of 2021. We're looking into 2022. What would you say is the project or initiative that Cape Fox has on the horizon that you are the most excited about, whether it's creating jobs or a new service, or what do you I have to tell people this is so cool that's coming up for you?
Well, just from a general level, it's certainly the 2022 tourism season that we talked about already, but not to rehash that. The big project for this next summer is we're replacing the Cape Fox tram. So if you've seen a picture of Cape Fox coming up from the historic Creek Street up to the Cape Fox Lodge, there's a tram that's been there for many years. And we have the board recently over the summer approved a replacement plan for that. So we're going to bring in a heavy lift helicopter and fly that in, and everything else due to its position. It's you can't use a crane or anything. So it's going to be quite the event, I think, for the community once we work on replacing that. Now, the timing of that is still a little up in the air just because of logistics and supply chain challenges I think everyone's having at the moment. So we haven't finalized the date on that. But that's going to be the big event for this next year is the tram replacement, because that's kind of one of the historic, items in Ketchikan in terms of tourism and photography and those types of things. So we're really excited about that.
That is exciting. So once you begin work on that this summer, will it be done this season?
We're hoping so.
Okay.
That is the plan. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, I hear that definitely happens. And then Sheri, what about Chugach, Alaska? What are you guys really excited looking forward to in 2022?
So I'm excited about a new structure the board has been working on, and our leadership transitions that we're right in the middle of. So we've focused on our operating companies, and then what we're calling our community value centers, which are our shareholders, our land, our cultural, our communities. And so how do we, make them successful? How do we invest and move forward in those? And our leadership transitions, we have a new president of Chugach, President and Chief Operating Officer, Dan Fenza, who's been with Chugach for over 20 years. I'm excited for him to really move us forward with our operating companies. We have a Tim Hopper, who we call Hoops, who is retiring, has been with Chugach for almost 20 years. And, we were going to really miss him, but we have another leader stepping into his role to run the government division, Scott Davis. And he's been with Chugach for over 20 years and is coming back to the company. Peter Anderson is a shareholder who's running our commercial division. Angie Astle is running as our CFO and over our investments. Melanie Osborne's our brilliant general counsel and has really helped us through this pandemic, and her leadership has been phenomenal. Josie Hickles overseeing our lands and community. And, I just feel very, very fortunate to have this dynamic team. And I think they're going to do amazing things in the future for Chugach.
Okay, fantastic. That's awesome. Well, that's just about our half hour. We started this a little bit early because our presentation ended a little bit early. So do either of you have a final thought you'd like to add? And it's okay if you don't, but do either of you have final thoughts you'd like to add before we let you go and we all enjoy the late lunch that we put off because we were doing this presentation?
I just want to say finally, be kind to each other in this time. We owe it to our community and each other as Alaskans to just be compassionate and caring, and we'll get through this challenge, and Alaska will persevere. And good luck to all the companies that you've listed, and all of you. You guys are great, Jason and Charles and Tasha.
Oh, thank you, Sheri. Chris, do you have any
Sure.
final thoughts? Again, you don't have to.
Hey, I think
All out of thoughts.
that was a great follow-up. Be kind, be supportive of each other, especially right now. Sheri mentioned something earlier about, mental illness and those types of things associated with COVID and, anxiety and a lot of things people have right now. People need support, be supportive of each other, be kind. I think that's a great message to lead with. So we'll leave it at that. But I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Chris and Sheri, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure speaking with both of you, and I really appreciate the insights that you've shared with us today. Thank you, everyone who's joined the Top 49ers presentation and this executive Q&A. For more information on the Top 49ers, as Charles mentioned, check out the October issue. You can find the digital edition on our website. Subscribers will be receiving it soon. And from the whole team at Alaska Business, we appreciate you. Be nice to each other. And we look forward to seeing you next year. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.